Stillwaters asked what Ruko's situation was. Tiana said that Ruko's respawn time is not over yet. He frowned. Tiana said that she hasn't contacted him yet, but his dashboard shows that his level has dropped by as much as 6 levels. Coco Lee asked how such a strange thing could be possible. She said that if this is a game bug, there should be an official investigation because levels are a very important resource for players of this game. Stillwaters asked if there was any news from Ling Si. Coco Lee said that they haven't seen him since the Narlo situation, and Narlo hasn't logged into the game yet because his body needs to recover. She said that Ling Si said that he would check Narlo's condition in these 2 days, but there has been no news until now. Stillwaters and Coco Lee stood on the balcony. Tiana said that some guild members said that they saw Ling Si, and they saw him at the level 90 dungeon mission reception desk. She said that there seemed to be a bug where an NPC injured the player. Stillwaters, raising his eyebrows in amazement, asked about a bug in which an NPC injured a player. The green phantom Coco Lee was shooting an arrow. The yellow phantom Stillwaters was holding a book shrouded in yellow energy. The blue phantom Narlo, shrouded in electricity, held a blade in his hand. The red phantom Tillies clutched a staff, and the blue phantom Darkfeather wielded 2 pistols. Ling Si was surrounded by them and they showered him with attacks. Frowning, he thought they were coming. Turning around, he saw a huge yellow magic circle. Phantom Stillwaters used divine restraint. Ling Si dodged. Looking at the yellow phantom's face, he thought of Stillwaters, who had skillful control. Phantom Coco Lee used rapid fire, surrounding the protagonist with green magic arrows. Shrouded in purple electricity, Ling Si quickly dodged and magic arrows exploded in the air. He thought about Coco Lee, who is good at AoE attacks. Blue energy shrouded in electricity flashed through the air. Phantom Narlo struck with his blade, which the protagonist blocked with a dagger. He thought about Narlo, who skillfully wields guerrilla ambush. Blue and red phantoms appeared behind Ling Si, ready to strike. He thought about Tillies and Darkfeather, who are good at burst damage and continuous DPS. The Phantom's attacks caused an explosion, raising a cloud of dust. Ling Si thought that this was an almost perfect team composition, coupled with human-like coordination, and he could not resist them. Clutching the one shrouded in purple energy in his hand, he thought that at this rate he would lose to them. Pursing his lips, the protagonist thought that he had no confidence, and nothing less could be expected from his shadow team. Rushing forward, he thought that time was almost up. Ling Si frowned decisively. Jumping out of the cloud of dust, he thought that if time ran out, he would lose and this would be over. The main character continued to run around the arena, dodging the blows of the phantoms. Ling Si smiled. He used Spectre Stealth and a purple evil spirit face appeared above the ground. The fear effect was applied to the phantoms, and they froze in place, shaking. Flames appeared above the ground. Ling Si used elemental transformation, Rockfisher Burrow. Flames were coming out from cracks in the ground. Ling Si jumped out of the ground among the phantoms, shrouded in purple energy. Glowing with a purple aura, he said that he would trap all of them together. A sphere of violet energy enveloped them. A purple fog enveloped the phantoms, who could not find the main character in it. The dialogue box says, Shadow Ambush, a skill that pulls the opponent into an independent space. Armor defense decreases by 30%. The sphere of violet energy was enveloped in a strong magical aura. 24 seconds left. The main character came out of the magical space into the arena. Walking around the arena, frowning, he said, "That's it." The timer showed zeros and Ling Si shouted that the time was up. He demanded to finish this broken game as soon as possible. Guide said that time is up and the second stage of Real Phantom is over. He said that according to his bet of 1 level, and the multiplier of each phantom, his levels would be deducted. Guide said, first, Phantom Tilly's, multiplier 5. A spear of red energy pierced her body. The main character looked in bewilderment at the falling body of the phantom. He opened his eyes in shock. Guide said that Ling Si loses 5 levels. A spear of red energy pierced his shoulder. Tiana told Tillies that she had better return to the guild first, and she had already notified Darkfeather. She said Stillwaters believes this is not a minor issue, and is not as simple as a game bug. Tillies, looking at the dialogue box, said, "I understand." She started saying something about Ruko. Tillies did not have time to finish, and something shook her. She fell to the ground, dropping to one knee. Tiana asked her what happened. Blood gushed from Tillies' chest and she opened her mouth in shock. Guide demanded that Ling Si answer him why he did not attack these phantoms. He said that for his companions, all they lose is the in-game punishment for dying. Guide said that these were important levels for him, which he worked hard to get in order to become stronger. 5 multicolored energy spears, the same colors as the phantoms he was fighting, pierced the body of the protagonist, who was now level 84. Guide shouted that it was level 23, and with his strength, he could easily defeat all the phantoms, reaching the maximum level he dreamed of, level 120. Ling Si clenched his jaw. Frowning gloomily, he demanded an answer. Guide looked at him with a grin, and the main character asked what the conditions of the game were. Tiana said in shock and horror that Ryuko still couldn't respond. Looking at the game interface, she asked why the game status of each of them was grayed out. Guide asked Ling Si that if he had known in advance, he would have dealt with them personally. He said that he could at least get the maximum level. Ling Si angrily asked what he was. Guide said that what he is not important now. Ling Si, frowning, bulged his eyes, and the guide said that he is extraordinary in this life now. He asked if he really believed that it was just a coincidence that the NPC was acting strangely around him. The main character remembered how an NPC attacked the player. Guide said that everything happened because of Ling Si, and for Heavenland at the moment he is the real bug. Ling Si opened his eyes in shock, and the guide said that he had created foul play with his existence. He asked him if he understood. Guide said that even if he doesn't understand, it doesn't matter and he still has 84 levels that he can use to bet. He said that there were many more games waiting for him in this dungeon. Guide asked about the third stage of Real Phantom. He asked what other friends he had in the game. Cold sweat ran down the protagonist's face. The vein on his face bulged with rage, and he said not to joke with him. Extending his palm forward, Ling Si said that he would end all of this. Clenching his hand into a fist, he said that he wanted to challenge him directly. Streams of energy of different colors appeared above the arena, lifting stones upward. Guide announced the name of the next game, Choice and Confession. Phantoms of the protagonist's friends appeared behind him, chained to crosses of energy. Guide suggested we play and have fun. One by one, the phantoms turned into Ling Si's real comrades, hanging on crosses and shrouded in energy covering their naked bodies, unconscious. Before him were Ryuko, Narlo, Stillwaters, Coco Lee, Darkfeather and Tilly's. The main character, widening his eyes in shock, asked what he was going to do with them. Guide asked if he wanted to choose to save his friends anymore. He said that he would give him a chance to save them. Guide said that by using Thorn of Punishment to hit images of friends he wants to save, even if he wins, the levels he gets from his friends can be exempted from deduction. Ling Si looked at the red spike of energy protruding from his shoulder. Guide said, of course, the game won't let him hit them that easily, and the stage-transformed boulder will be his greatest obstacle. He announced that the multiplier for this game is 8. Guide said that this is a good number and later if he can hit the target he can save his friends and gain 8 levels accordingly. Otherwise he will lose 8 levels. Raising his index finger, he said that to make the bet fair, he would have to increase the penalty for his bet. The main character saw Tiana's worried face in the air. Guide said, your companions. Ling Si exclaimed in shock, Tiana. Guide said with a smirk that if he lost, another one of his companions would get hurt. He announced the start of the game and the 30-second countdown for each round. Guide, narrowing his eyes, offered to see how he would cope with saving his friends. He said this is the game he challenged him for. Ling Si, without allowing him to finish his sentence, hit the image of Stillwaters with yellow energy. Guide turned around in amazement. Ling Si, who had just thrown the yellow thorn of punishment, told him to stop talking. He told him with a serious face, since the game had already started, to stop wasting his time. He said Stillwaters would be the first. The dialogue box says, target hit, time taken 3 seconds. Ling Si thought that he needed to keep the guild in mind, and to prevent the guild from falling into chaos, Stillwaters, the vice guild leader, must be saved first. The timer showed 27 seconds. The dialogue box says, the target you hit has been successfully saved. You gained 8 levels. Ling Si reached level 92 and told Guide to hurry up and start the next round. Guide said that he figured out how to play this game in a second, which is truly incredible. He said, as he wished, they would quickly start the second round. Ling Si thought that he was using the movement of the stones to prevent him from aiming. Frowning, he thought, as long as there is time to predict, even if it's just an instant, then it can't trouble him. The main character moved between the stones with lightning speed, leaving an electrical trail behind him. Swinging, he threw the blue thorn of punishment at the image of Narlo, chained to the cross. Ling Si thought that he had just recently woken up, and he couldn't put him in danger anymore. The dialogue box says, time taken 3 seconds, successfully hit the target, you have gained 8 levels. The main character thought that there were 4 of them left. A dialogue box announced the start of the third round. Ling Si, who had reached level 100, thought since his elemental transformation, electricity is faster than the movement speed of these stones, it is more than enough to beat this game. Guide watched him with wide eyes. Ling Si flashed between the floating stones, leaving an electrical trail behind him. He decided that his next target was Tilly's or Coco Lee. He threw a green thorn of punishment at Coco Lee. The stone quickly moved between the thorn of punishment, covering Coco Lee. Ling Si opened his eyes in shock. Thorn of punishment broke the stone into pieces before reaching Coco Lee. The main character realized that the stones suddenly accelerated and changed their territory. Guide said mockingly, "What a pity, Ling Si." Gritting his teeth, the main character realized that he did it. Guide, raising his palm forward, told him not to forget that this game is a competition between the two of them. The timer showed that there were 12 seconds left until the end of the round. Ling Si, jumping between the stones, threw forward a red thorn of punishment. The stone covered Tilly's, preventing the thorn of punishment from reaching her. Another stone just as quickly covered Dark Feather, preventing the blue thorn of punishment from reaching it. The timer showed zeros. A dialogue box indicated that time had expired. Ling Si widened his eyes in shock and despair. Tiana's face disappeared above Guide's head. He said he lost this round. A column of pinkish energy rushed upward. In front of him was Tiana, chained to a cross of pinkish energy. She was unconscious, but her face looked worried. The office she had just been in was empty. A dialogue box informed Ling Si that he had lost 8 levels this round. He clenched his teeth. Guide said, "What a shame." He said that he thought that he could continue to hit targets. After all, competing with him was Ling Si's choice. Guide said it's not pushover. The faces of Vankafis, Wasabi and Dira appeared in the air. Guide asked which of his friends he should use as his bet for the next round. He asked his friend the Medicine King, Vankafis, his intelligence agent, Wasabi, or Tiana's best friend, a member of his guild, Dira. Smiling, Guide asked to be allowed to think. Narlo appeared behind him and he said that he believed that continuing with his most important teammate, Narlo, was the most appropriate choice. Guide opened his eyes in amazement. Violet energy surrounded him. Using swift backstab, Ling Si ended up behind Guide, hitting him with a dagger. Guide blocked his attack and dodged. He told him not to get so excited. He said with a smirk that he didn't want to compete with him like that. Raising his palm, Guide told him to have patience and suggested that he play this game to the end as it should. Ling Si remained silent with a gloomy face. Guide said he didn't think he would give up that easily and suggested moving on to the next round. He said that, unfortunately, he had spent all the thorn of punishment he had. Ling Si stood clenching his fists, and the guide said that in order to continue saving his friends, he needed more thorn of punishment. He said that in exchange for thorn of punishment he needed to pay 8 levels. Ling Si gritted his teeth, sweating nervously. Guide asked with a slippery smile whether he wanted to continue or give up. He said that if he admitted defeat to their competition, he would happily move on to another game and continue. The main character clicked his tongue in irritation. A dialogue box informed him that he had paid 8 levels in exchange for thorn of punishment. A red thorn of punishment appeared in his hand. Guide closed his eyes and said that it looked like he wanted to continue. A lot of colored thorns of punishment appeared above the main character's head, and he said, not just one. A dialogue box informed him that he had paid 72 levels in exchange for 9 thorn of punishment. Ling Si, who is now level 20, was surrounded by a thorn of punishment. He said that he would finish this competition in 1 round. Guide asked, finish in 1 round. He asked if he was really that confident in himself. Ling Si, with a face full of anger, said, of course. A voice above the arena announced that a new round was about to begin. He announced the countdown. The timer showed 30 seconds. The main character stood with a blue and red thorn of punishment in his hands. The voice announced the start of the round, and Ling Si rushed forward. Using elemental transformation, thunder, he began to rapidly move between the stones floating in the air. Guide asked with a grin about him using the same method to challenge him. Raising his palm, he said that it was useless. Looking at his 5 comrades chained to crosses, the main character thought that he had 9 chances and 5 people. Ling Si grabbed several thorns of punishment in one hand. He threw several thorns of punishment at once. Guide asked, 4 at once. He said he wants to win with numbers. Blocking his thorn of punishment with stones, he shouted that he was too naive. Having blocked the blue thorn of punishment stones, the guide said that this was the last one. Noticing something, he exclaimed with interest. A purple thorn of punishment flew through the air. Guide exclaimed that it was a distraction. Knight of the Glorious appeared behind him. The knight grabbed his wrist, immobilizing him. Guide exclaimed that it was summoned. He opened his eyes wide in amazement. The purple thorn of punishment hit Tiana's image. Ling Si said that he was convinced of something when he attacked him earlier. He announced that he could be touched. The main character said it's most suitable to use the Knight of the Glorious to hold him back. He held in his hands a red and blue thorn of punishment. Ling Si said with a confident grin that he was going to win this round in one fell swoop. The timer showed 7 seconds. Ling Si frowned in concentration and thought that he should save them in one go. He thought he only had 7 seconds left. Guide was struggling from the knight's grip, and the protagonist thought that he needed to save the 4 of them with one throw while the knight could still hold him off. Purple energy enveloped the thorn of punishment in his hand. Ling Si thought that he needed to increase the speed of his throws and apply the thunder attribute to thorn of punishment. He used elemental transformation, thunderification. The timer showed 3 seconds. Ling Si squinted his eyes resolutely and thought that he needed to take a chance. He threw all his thorn of punishment, shrouded in purple energy, forward. His projectiles quickly rushed towards their targets. Guide exclaimed in amazement. 2 thorns of punishment hit the images of Aruko and Tilly's. The timer showed 2 seconds. 2 more thorns of punishment hit the images of Coco Lee and Dark Feather. The timer showed 0 seconds. A voice announced that time was up. The main character, breathing tiredly, looked forward. He reached level 60 and grinned happily as he was enveloped in yellow light. A dialogue box congratulated him for hitting all targets within the allotted time and gaining level 32. Guide thought that this skill was not in the game. Sweating nervously, he thought that Ling Si might not understand it himself yet, but he had created a skill that originally did not exist in this world. Guide said with a grin that this was beyond the rights and abilities of the player. The stones quickly fell into the arena, and he exclaimed, "What a great performance." Ling Si asked what was happening to them in the game right now. Guide told him not to worry, and since he won this game, his friends would only receive punishments for death, and very soon they would be able to play as usual. The main character asked why he could control such things in the game. Guide said that at the moment he is only a dungeon guide NPC for him. He said that in his eyes, he can control many things in the game, but in his eyes, Ling Si is the heart of the matter. The main character looked at him silently, confused. Guide said that he had made a mistake in his calculations and he didn't expect him to use summon skills to stop him. He said that he was able to probe and come up with a method to overcome it in such a short period of time. Guide said that he is truly incredible and he admits defeat in this competition. Raising his palm, he told him to look at the level displayed above his head. Guide said that the level 101 he had was now down to level 60. He said that in the leveling game he suffered a pretty bad defeat. Guide said that it seems his companions are very important to him. Pointing his finger at it, he said that perhaps this was the source of his potential. The knight shouted to the main character to be careful. Rushing towards him, he said that he felt a murderous aura from him. Guide quickly waved his palm. Knight of the Glorious immediately disappeared into thin air. Ling Si called out to the knight. Guide said that summoning wouldn't hurt him anymore, and he wouldn't let him hide it again. Remembering something, he said, speaking of summons. Guide asked him about having a daughter. Ling Si opened his eyes with concern. Guide said with an evil grin that he was tired of playing with his friends. He announced the bet for their next competition. Ling Si turned around abruptly. He saw Dumpling chained to a cross of purple energy. The main character loudly called out to Dumpling. Dumpling worriedly asked where they were. There was an invisible magical barrier between them that Ling Si could not break through with his attacks. Clenching his jaw, he thought that he could not break it. Kaja asked Ling Si what happened to Dumpling. She said she felt it. Kaja, taking on her fighting form, said that she wanted to get out. Returning back to her small form, she exclaimed that she could not use her power. Guide said he didn't want anything else to interfere with them. He said that this time the victim was different from his companions earlier. He said it was just an image projection. A purple spike pierced Dumpling's body. Guide said since she is a product of this game, she may be sacrificed and disappear. Ling Si opened his eyes in horror. Cursing loudly, he rushed to attack with daggers shrouded in purple energy in his hands. He was unable to reach the guide, which was separated from him by the same magical barrier. A cloud of dust rose above the arena. Guide said that he would not be able to defeat him with his current level, and that was the price for choosing to save his companions. Ling Si clenched his teeth desperately. He asked if he really liked playing games. Guide looked at him in amazement. The main character, resolutely frowning, suggests sending this with the help of a game. The voice announced, "The final sacrifice." Blue and red dice appeared in the air. The dialogue box says, "The final sacrifice. Through rolling dice and comparing values, the one with the higher value wins. During the rolling of the dice, the value can be influenced by abilities. A total of 5 rounds, following the principle of best of 5 games. Every time the player loses, the sacrificial object, Dumpling, will receive punishment." Guide said with a slippery smile that the fact that this time the bet is the product of the game is much more convenient. If the player fails in the end, the sacrificial object Dumpling will be obliterated and disappear from the game. Guide said that it is different from his friends because there are many restrictions around them and he cannot completely deprive them of his data. Dumpling called out to the main character in fear. Ling Si thought that along with his levels, his characteristics also dropped, and he definitely would not be able to resist him in a head-on confrontation. He thought that these past rounds of play were all part of his pre-prepared plan. Frowning, the main character thought that he knew about his weaknesses. He thought that these were bonds that he had created in this life. Clenching his fist, he thought that the only way now was to beat him at his own game. Guide asked if he liked the game. He asked how much he wanted to bet. The dialogue box says, "Please place your bet. The levels gained by winning and the levels lost by losing will be determined by the levels bet." Looking at the red dice, Ling Si thought that the rule of this game was that the die roll determines the outcome. He thought that the result of a dice roll could be changed by outside influences, so the essence of this game is not luck, but strength. The main character thought that now he only has 60 levels, and his attributes are not enough. He thought this was a very bad situation for him. Looking at the guide, Ling Si thought that this was definitely his pre-arranged unfair duel. Looking at Dumpling, he thought that it didn't matter to him how much he bet. Frowning, the main character thought that Dumpling was already in the gambling arena, and he had absolutely no choice. A dialogue box notified that he was betting 60 levels. Guide exclaimed with a smug smile that he really went all in. He said that if he loses, he will drop to level 0. And it looks like he wants to burn bridges and take risks. Ling Si shouted that he didn't want to play his perverted and stupid games anymore. He said emphatically that he would put everything on the line and win. Guide laughed and said, "He is too good." He said this was exactly the competition he wanted. A dialogue box announced the start of the first round and the start of the 30-second countdown. The timer showed 30 seconds and the dice began to fall into the arena. The red dice crashed into the ground. Ling Si flew into the air above the dice. He thought that the die would come up with a 3. Enveloped in purple energy, he tossed the die into the air. The die began to fall with the side with the number 6 up on the ground. The main character grabbed the dice with his hand. Throwing the die to the ground with force, he mentally told it to be number 6. The timer showed 8 seconds. Ling Si thought that 6 was the biggest number. Guide, who had a blue dice in front of him, told him that it was not bad, and he understood how to play the game so quickly. He said, however, his number is also 6. The main character pursed his lips tightly. Guide asked if he would agree to a draw. Ling Si moved silently, shrouded in electricity. The timer showed 3 seconds. Rushing forward, he shouted that he did not agree to a draw. Guide asked if he intended to move his cube. Ling Si silently ran forward, shrouded in electricity. Guide said with a grin, "That's smart." Swinging his leg, the main character thought that he wanted to win. He kicked the blue dice hard. Guide grinned smugly. A dialogue box indicated that time had expired and the first round was over. The main character was unable to turn over the blue die. The timer has reached 0. Ling Si clicked his tongue and said that he didn't have time. He thought that he would definitely succeed if he was level 100, and as expected, the loss of levels caused his stats to decrease significantly. A dialogue box announced the start of scoring. Blue has a score of 6. The next dialogue box said, red has a score of 3. First round, blue wins. Ling Si opened his mouth in shock. Looking at his die, which had turned over, he thought about the score of 3. The red die was indeed now lying with the side with the number 3 facing up. Ling Si thought that he was careless, and this was because of the attack just now. Dumpling's hand disappeared and she exclaimed. The dialogue box says, "Prepare to begin the second round." Guide said, "What a shame." He said if he still had his high level, he would definitely be able to move his die. He said that if that were the case, it would be a competition of luck and he wouldn't lose to him directly like just now. Guide asked what other ways could a level 60 Ling Si win. Ling Si cursed irritably. The timer showed 30 seconds, and the dice reappeared in the air. Enveloping the blue dice in blue energy, Guide asked the protagonist if he still wanted to compete in speed. He said the speed at which he can change a die roll is much faster than his. Guide looked in amazement at the red dice approaching him. The red die pushed the blue die aside and Guide asked what he meant by that. He asked if he was giving him his cube and if he was thinking about admitting defeat. Ling Si grabbed the blue dice with his hand. Slamming the die onto the ground, he shouted that since his ability to control the die was stronger than his, there was no point in thinking about his own die. Dust cleared around the dice, making the most of his top time. Ling Si invited him to compete openly and fairly in their true game control skills. A blue dice floated in the air. Touching it with his hand, the main character threw the die to the side. The timer showed 12 seconds. Guide waved his hand upward. A red die, shrouded in blue energy, rose into the air. Having risen into the air, it appeared in front of the main character. Guide thought that by using actions per minute, the number of effective actions performed by a player per minute, also known as the speed of their actions, which reflects the player's skill level to the maximum. Ling Si exceeded the limits of his attributes, completely dodging his attack's cube changes. He wondered if he was thinking about controlling both dice. Guide thought this was a truly extraordinary top time and it made him excited. With his eyes wide open and a broad smile, the guide said that everything was as it should be. Ling Si quickly moved upward, leaving behind after images. The timer showed 3 seconds. The protagonist was rapidly approaching the red die, and Guide thought that he could not hit it even if he increased the power of energy interference. Ling Si kicked the blue dice forcefully. Guide thought that Ling Si was in complete control. The main character grabbed the red dice with his hand. The timer showed zeros. A dialogue box announced the end of the round and the start of scoring. The voice announced, red, 6 points, blue, 2 points. Ling Si stood next to the red dice as a voice announced his victory. A dialogue box reported that each side had won 1 round. Guide grinned contentedly. His grin widened, showing his teeth. The dialogue box said to prepare for the 3rd round. Dice appeared in the air above the arena. The timer showed 30 seconds again. The main character, stomping hard on the arena, thought that he would continue to use top time and win this round too. He was approaching the red dice. The dice fell to the ground, showing the number 6. The main character looked sharply at the guide. He noticed that he was not attacking. The blue dice in front of him showed the number 1. Guide was shrouded in blue squares. Suddenly he found himself behind the protagonist. A clot of blue energy appeared in his hand. The blue energy hit the ground behind Ling Si with force. He looked down sharply. Blue energy swirled under his feet. It enveloped his legs, curling around them. Ling Si wrinkled the bridge of his nose and gritted his teeth. Guide asked with a grin what he would do if he sealed his body. He said that the harder he moved, the deeper his feet would sink. He asked if he could use his top time for now. The timer showed 11 seconds. Ling Si shouted that this was too mean. Guide said that from start to finish, the rules of this game never stated that restricting an opponent's movements was prohibited. He asked why it was mean if he wasn't breaking any rules at all. He advised him not to try too hard to get out because his legs would become useless if he continued like this. Guide, controlling the dice, told him to just quietly watch the end of this round. Ling Si clenched his jaw and thought that his movements were completely sealed. Looking at Dumpling, he thought that if this continues, Dumpling's body will disappear. Dumpling desperately and fearfully called the main character. It dawned on the main character and he thought about the body. The red die fell to the ground, showing the number 1. The blue die showed the number 6. Guide told the main character that he seemed to be out of options and he would win this round. The timer showed 6 seconds. Ling Si said that he would not let him win so easily. Blue, cyan, purple, green and flame energies surrounded him and he used Body of Chaotic Turmoil. The main character turned around sharply and thought that this elemental transformed body was no longer restrained by him. A stream of multicolored energy rushed forward, throwing dice into the air. The timer has reached 0. A whirlwind of energy rushed upward, and the dice fell to the ground. The dialogue box says, time's up for the 3rd round. Start to calculate this round's points. The dice fell into the arena. The dialogue box says, red, 6 points. Blue, 4 points. Red wins. Guide said that he had to admire his adaptability, and he managed to come up with a way in such a short time. The main character landed in the arena, his broken legs trembling in pain. Guide asked if his legs could handle any longer. There was blood coming from the main character's legs. Guide grinned evilly. A dialogue box announced the end of the 4th round. The blue die fell next to the guide. The dialogue box says, blue, 6 points. Red, 1 point. Blue wins. Guide said he had something to say. The dialogue box says, red and blue are tied at 2-2 currently. Prepare to begin the 5th and final round. Ling Si knelt down and Guide asked if he could continue. Part of Dumpling's body began to disappear. Trembling, she moaned slightly in pain and fear. Violet energy enveloped her fading body. Guide mockingly asked the main character how he was feeling. He said it looked like he was having a hard time even standing. Putting his hands to the sides, the guide said that he could blame him for being ruthless with him. He said he wanted to see if, tired and injured, he could figure out how to turn the game around. He said with a smirk, or he wouldn't be able to do anything and would helplessly watch his daughter disappear. Gritting his teeth, Ling Si exhaled heavily. Through the pain, he began to rise to his feet. Standing in front of the guide, the main character said that they have one more round and he will definitely win. He frowned resolutely. A dialogue box announced the start of the 5th and final round. Blue energy covered the arena. Guide told him to just keep slowly getting tortured by his distortion. The dice began to fall into the arena. The timer showed 30 seconds. The main character clenched his fist, shrouded in blue energy. Blue energy tightly wrapped around his legs. Guide told him to destroy his body like in the last round. He shouted that he won't go easy on him. The purple evil spirit's eyes flashed red. Ling Si used evil spirit invincibility. The purple evil spirit hit the magical barrier covering the guide. Ling Si was approaching the red dye behind him, and the guide said that this was unexpected, and even when his body was covered in wounds from his attacks, he was still able to move so deftly. The main character hit both dice with force, overcoming the pain. Ling Si, coughing up blood, said that he would not quietly be sealed to death by him like last round. Guide said that he couldn't help but admire his willpower, but he had better not overwork himself. He said that with his body in this condition, he would not be able to use top time, and he would not be able to compete with him in speed. Blue energy hit the dice around the protagonist. Guide looked at Ling Si in amazement. A giant black sword shrouded in purple energy appeared above the ground. Guide said he eventually used it. In front of him was a huge purple spirit king with a sword in his hand, and the guide said, "This nostalgic giant king." The main character, landing on the ground along with the dice, said that, as he said, from beginning to end, they are allowed to limit the opponent's movements in this game. With his brows furrowed in determination, he shouted at him to let Giant King be his opponent. The timer showed 11 seconds. Guide said that nothing less could be expected from Ling Si. The main character used the Open the Sky skill, and the sword, shrouded in flames, rushed towards the guide. Guide suddenly grinned widely. The sword changed its trajectory and appeared above Dumpling. Ling Si opened his eyes in shock. Rushing towards Dumpling, he shouted at him to stop. Dumpling looked in amazement at the sword approaching her, not having time to fully comprehend the situation. The giant sword struck her, throwing up a huge cloud of dust. The main character looked at this with horror on his face. He loudly called out to Dumpling. Guide, holding 2 dice in his hands, laughed evilly. He said that this is the world that belongs to him. The protagonist's fist, shrouded in a purple aura, was rapidly approaching him. Ling Si's punch missed its target, hitting the magic barrier. Blood gushed through the protagonist's clenched teeth. Dumpling, disappearing, sadly called out to the main character. Guide appeared behind Ling Si and said with a grin that human emotions are very useful. He hit the main character on the ground, breaking the floor of the arena. The timer showed 4 seconds. Raising the dice up, Guide said that this game is about to end, and it seems that he no longer has the strength to resist. He said that Bet Sacrifice would disappear from the game. Smirking evilly, Guide said that he would fall to level 0 and Ling Si's ID would be erased from the game. Ling Si was lying on the ground among the stone debris. Guide said he lost. The timer showed 2 seconds. Ling Si's memories slowly disappeared, covered in squares, and the guide told him to disappear from his world since he was not chosen. The timer showed 1 second. Ling Si suddenly opened his eyes, blazing with anger. Raising his hands, the guide shouted for him to disappear. Suddenly, he froze in place and exclaimed in amazement. The dice floated in the air without moving. The timer still showed 1 second. Even fragments of stones hung above the ground. Guide said the game time stopped moving. A bright purple energy appeared behind him and Guide turned around. The main character, shrouded in purple and yellow energy, said that the world he calls his own belongs to him. Little Ling Si was submerged in water. Someone told someone that it was too dangerous and she would kill him. A woman with white hair and blood coming from her mouth said that for her he was 100% perfect. Ling Si's eyes opened, glowing with purple light. The main character, lying on the ground, suddenly stood up. A bright purple energy glowed in his hand. Ling Si, shrouded in purple energy, began to rise to his feet. He straightened up and an arrow of yellow energy appeared on his chest. Guide, who was manipulating the dice in the air, suddenly turned around. Ling Si, whose hair turned black except for one white strand, and whose eyes glowed with purple light, reached 100% synchronization and awakened state. She said that the world he calls his own belongs to him. The dice floated in the air. Guide silently looked at the blue squares in front of him. Looking at the timer frozen in place, he thought that the game time was still not moving. Looking at Ling Si, he thought it was interesting. Raising his palm, Guide said with a smirk that it seemed like the time had come for a direct confrontation between the two. Blue energy appeared around Ling Si. Guide thought that he couldn't hit it. He said that in that case it would surround him and then explode. Guide, enveloped in energy, raised both palms forward. Noticing something, he froze in place, and nervous sweat ran down his face. The blue energy hit the main character, but did not cause him any harm. Ling Si asked if this is all he can do. Guide opened his mouth in amazement. His face twisted into a grin. A blast of blue energy appeared in his hand using distortion. Blue energy surrounded the main character. Guide said he would drown him. Blue energy exploded, enveloping Ling Si. Guide told him with a smirk not to blame him for using too much power. Ling Si appeared behind him and asked if this was so. Looking at him with red eyes, he abruptly moved from his place. Noticing the approaching attack, Guide raised a magical barrier. Violet energy hit the barrier, breaking it. Guide thought in amazement that he had broken his shield so easily. Ling Si waved his hand and asked if he was cutting tofu. He swung his leg over his head. Guide. His attack raised a cloud of dust above the ground. The main character stood in a dissipating cloud of dust with his leg raised. Guide, lying on the ground, thought that if he had not used the power of the main consciousness at the end, then the data of this body would not have been able to block his kick. He said with a smile that his power was truly interesting. He exclaimed that he had surpassed his imagination, and he thought from the bottom of his heart that he was simply a short-lived character. Blue squares surrounded the arena, and he said that he did not expect such a surprise from him. Projectiles of blue energy rushed towards Ling Si, and Guide said that he was looking forward to finding out how much more power he had. A dagger shrouded in dark purple energy appeared in the protagonist's hand. With a swing of his dagger, he dispelled the blue energy around him. Ling Si abruptly looked to the side. Guide was amazed to think that he was actually able to immediately discover its true spatial location. He asked, shouting, "So what?" The image of Dumpling appeared before him. Guide asked if he could attack. The daggers in Ling Si's hands enveloped the blue squares. They disappeared in his hands. The main character smashed the dumpling image with his fist. Guide said he didn't expect him to actually attack his daughter. The main character, grinning, said, "Got you." Grabbing Dumpling's hand, he pulled her out of the empty space. Guide asked in shock how this was possible, since this is a different data space that belongs to him. He opened his eyes wide. The main character, waving his dagger, said, "I already said." With a blow of a dagger, he deprived the Guide of his hand and said, "It and she are now mine." Guide looked in amazement at the hand that had separated from his body. He asked, "How?" Guide asked how he could influence the space. He wondered just to what extent his awakened ability reached. Ling Si held Dumpling in his hands, covered with a black cloth. Dumpling opened her eyes and he asked her how she was feeling. She said in a weak voice that she was fine. Touching Ling Si's face, Dumpling told him not to cry. In the protagonist's memories, a woman with blood on her face flashed. He said that he thought he would never be able to see her again. The main character told her to rest because he got her into this. Dumpling told him not to say such things. Ling Si asked Kaja to take care of Dumpling. Kaja annoyedly told him that because of him, Dumpling suffered serious injuries, and she would definitely get even with him later. The main character closed his eyes and apologized. Opening his eyes, he said he'd go take back that one breath right now. Standing in the arena, Ling Si shouted that he had nowhere else to run. Guide looked at him in amazement. He clicked his tongue in irritation. Leaving behind a trail of purple energy, the main character rushed to attack. He said that this strike is for the Night of the Glorious. He cut off the Guide's second hand. Guide thought that this body could not hold out any longer, and he completely surpassed the realm of human awakening. Raising his palm up, he summoned a whirlwind and thought that it would retreat first. Ling Si abruptly looked to the side. Quickly pushing off the ground, he jumped up. Guide, who was trying to escape into the vortex he had just created, turned around. The main character, waving his hand, told him not to even think about running away. He struck one after another, shedding the enemy's blood. Guide hung in the air. Purple energy enveloped him and he began to fall apart. Ling Si landed on the arena. Turning around, he said what kind of shadow team members they were. Guide, gritting his teeth, thought that this was far superior to what he had imagined. He thought about his understanding of the game, his ability to create skills that shouldn't exist in the game, and his compatibility and synchronization with the game beyond the norm. Guide thought he couldn't be wrong. Ling Si was in front of him, ready to attack, and Guide thought that it was him, Ling Si. The main character said that the last strike is for him. Guide grinned as blood gushed from his mouth. He created a magical barrier in front of him and shouted at him to attack. Ling Si's eyes glowed with a bright purple light. An explosion of purple energy flashed through the air. The magical barrier broke into fragments. The main character ended up behind Guide and struck. Guide, whose body had been torn to pieces, laughed. His laughter became weaker and quieter, and the main character looked at him with a frown. A bright blue light flashed in the air. Guide disappeared behind him. Ling Si closed his eyes. The timer showed 1 second. The world around was in motion again. The timer has reached 0. The dice fell to the arena ground. The dialogue box says, "The final sacrifice, 5th round, time's up. Start to calculate the dice's points." Ling Si looked at the dice with his hand on his hip. The dialogue announced, red, 6 points, blue, 1 point. The voice began to announce the victory of the main character, but it got stuck on the last layer. The main character looked up. There was a bright light above his head, and stone fragments began to rise up. Ling Si thought in amazement that this space was collapsing. Gray city walls appeared next to him. After a little time they regained their original color. The NPC town reappeared around him, with a pillar of bright blue light in the middle of it. Ling Si wondered if he had returned. Shrouded in blue light, he looked ahead. An NPC girl with blue hair knelt down and greeted Ling Si, calling him Emperor. The buildings around him reappeared in the same form in which they had disappeared. NPCs walked the streets of the city again. The city streets became lively again. There was a crowd of people around the brick building. Ling Si stood not far from the NPC girl. When approaching the building, NPCs knelt down. Ling Si looked around with his hands in his pockets. Looking ahead, he opened his mouth in slight surprise. He saw in front of him many NPCs crouched on the ground. They congratulated him on his return, calling him Emperor. The main character stood in amazement. He noticed shiny particles before his eyes. Yellow lights surrounded him, and Ling Si wondered what was going on. The dialogue box says, "Congratulations, you completed the God of Wisdom's betting arena." Yellow energy was coming from people nearby. A dialogue box announced that the townspeople would support him. The yellow energy emanating from them enveloped Ling Si. The dialogue box says, "You will receive the levels 1 from the betting arena." Yellow light was emanating from his body and its level was rapidly increasing. A column of yellow light rushed into the sky. Ling Si's hair turned white again and he noticed that he had received a title. His new title, The Only Awakened. Dark Feather, sitting on a tree, knelt down. Looking through the optical sight, he said that nothing was happening at his coordinates. He said into the dialogue box that there are only mountains and forests here. Tiana said that the tracking records show that Ling Si last appeared in this area. She asked him to continue exploring. Dark Feather noticed something and looked up. Black particles flew through the air. Dark Feather said something is going on here. He asked to come here as soon as possible. Standing under the tree, Tiana asked if he was sure it was near that big tree. Dark Feather said that he would not make such a mistake. Tillies turned around and said that there was absolutely nothing here. In front of them was an empty plain covered with grass. Someone was walking through the fog. Ruko said that it looks like there is someone there. Smiling, he exclaimed. The main character walked through the fog. One strand of his hair turned black. Ruko exclaimed that it was Ling Si. Tiana exclaimed happily. She said she was very glad he was okay. Noticing something, she froze and opened her eyes in amazement. She saw above his head that he had reached level 120. Ling Si looked at them with tired eyes. Tillies said that, as expected, he was the reason, and they all lost from 5 to 10 levels, and she even fell out of the top 5 of the ranking list. Ruko said that a lot of the good equipment he got from the recent dungeon was broken. Ling Si said that it was all nothing. He said he was very happy to see that they were all okay. The protagonist closed his eyes and said with a smile that at the moment, Heavenland has a mechanism to catch up on levels, and with the strength of their guild, it won't take long for them to regain the lost levels. He asked where Stillwaters and Narlo were. Coco Lee said that Stillwaters is now in the real world taking care of Narlo because, after all, Narlo lives in his house. She said that Narlo was very shocked and he did not log into the game for several days and his account lost several levels for no reason. She said he even thought his family had done something to his account again. Tillies annoyedly told Ling Si that because of him they suddenly lost several levels, but at the same time he had already reached level 120. She also noticed his shiny title. Ruko exclaimed that this is the title for the maximum level. He said that there is probably no one in the entire game who has received it, and he is very jealous. He said that he also wants to reach the maximum level faster and get his own title. Ruko asked if there was any reward for getting the title. Ling Si thought that titles usually have additional benefits, and he completely forgot to look at what the reward of his title was. Tiana said that since he had already reached level 120, there should have been a server-wide notification so they wouldn't worry about him so much. Ling Si said that there was a high chance that this had something to do with that strange dungeon, and he also still didn't understand many things. Coco Lee, frowning since he was fine, suggested not to worry about it for now because they needed to get back to the guild as soon as possible. Ling Si asked if something happened. Coco Lee said that this morning Kyujin Shin issued a declaration of war against their guild, and it seems that Thousand Autumns have found out that they have lost their levels. She said that they want to take this opportunity and resume the guild war that was paused. Coco Lee said that even if they decide not to fight now, according to Heavenland's settings, the next step would be to allow all players to vote on whether to continue the war. She said that most players will definitely want to make this a big deal, and there is a high chance that the guild war will start again. Coco Lee said they didn't have much time left to quickly make preparations, and this issue about the strange dungeon was best left for later. Ling Si smiled thoughtfully and said that there is no need to be nervous. Coco Lee looked at him in amazement. The main character said that Thousand Autumns will cancel their declaration of war. Coco Lee asked if this was true. She asked what he was up to. She told him not to try to look tough. Ling Si said to trust him and he will not return to the guild for a while because he has things to do. Coco Lee shouted angrily she doesn't allow him. She asked what it was this time and if he still wanted to wander. Coco Lee shouted that even if he had a way, he still needed to go back to the guild and discuss everything with them properly. A carriage with an NPC drove through the trees, and she shouted that they would all return to the guild with her. The blue squares disappeared on the tree. A boy was sitting next to the man on the cart. He had a crazy smile on his face and said that he and Ling Si would meet again. The dialogue box says, "Do you want to confirm your title attribute?" The main character pressed the yes button. Ling Si glanced at the dialogue box above his head. He thought about the attribute with a smile. The dialogue box says, "The only awakened title attribute. As the only awakened, you have control over the information in this world. You can directly see the information of any player. Nothing can be hidden from you. Ling Si, disclose the information about my level." A stream of light rushed into the sky above the players. Server-wide announcement. Player Ling Si discloses information. Congratulations to player Ling Si for becoming the first level 120 max level player of Heavenland. Someone ordered that all guilds be informed. The man in armor, kneeling down, obeyed. Hyujin Shin gritted his teeth angrily and ordered the declaration of war against Penumbra to be cancelled. A guy in dark steel armor walked forward. Student Inch opened the door and told Hua Zioe that they were right, and Ling Si had indeed reached the maximum level. He said that Thousand Autumns immediately cancelled the declaration of war as soon as they found out about it. Student Inch asked how he did it. He exclaimed that his leveling speed was simply inhuman. Hua Zioe said, "Of course." Smiling with delight and enchantment, she said that he was, after all, her fiancé. She thought that quickly reach max level means playing the game very seriously, which means he works very hard, which means he wants to have a successful career as soon as possible, which means he wants to quickly create a wonderful life that belongs to them. Student Inch said it's happening again. Hua Zioe said that Ling Si is working so hard to get the maximum level because he wants to complete the wedding they promised as soon as possible. She exclaimed that he was working hard for their bright future. Hua Zioe said that she also has to work hard, and she can't let Ling Si's love down for her. She ordered that the guild management be notified of the meeting and increase their efforts for an alliance between Divine Wolf and Penumbra. Squirrel asked about the meeting. Sawyer said that Hua Zioe is holding a meeting. Squirrel said that this is rare, and it is rare for Hua Zioe to be so active. He said, it seemed like she was stimulated by Ling Si reaching the maximum level. Squirrel told Sawyer that he didn't have to kneel when he gave him the report. Sawyer said that he is vice guildmaster and some rules are necessary. He said that it would be bad if other guild members saw them. Sawyer asked what he thought about Ling Si reaching the maximum level. Level 101. Squirrel said with a smile that although he doesn't know how he reached the maximum level, he can accept it because it happened to him. He said that, at the end of the day, he was always difficult to understand, and that was good for them too. Sawyer looked at him with a smile. Squirrel said, because they made a promise with him. He said that the fact that he is strong works in favor of their goal of resurrecting Wolf's Fang, and under the cover of suppressing the dominance of Thousand Autumns, they will slowly grow until they rise again. Sawyer thought that Squirrel was becoming more and more like a guildmaster. 3 arrows hit exactly the center of the target. Fallen Whale told Blue Cloud that Ling Si had reached the maximum level. Blue Cloud said with a grin that nothing less could be expected from Ling Si, and he is always at the center of the action. Fallen Whale said with a smile that the declaration of war was issued in the morning and cancelled in the afternoon. He said that it seems that Thousand Autumns really lost face this time, and Blue Cloud really has foresight since he was on Ling Si's side all this time. Blue Cloud, shooting his bow, said that in his opinion, if things continue like this, Thousand Autumn's position as the strongest guild will soon be replaced. Having fired the arrow, he thought that there was only one last strong blow left. Someone contacted Kyujin Shin. He called out to him again, and Kyujin Shin came out of his thoughts. He said he was thinking about something. Temptress said that the family seemed to have great opinions about their sudden reversal of the declaration of war. She said that after the last guild war, they analyzed that Thousand Autumn's influence in Heavenland was constantly declining, and they want to consolidate their position by declaring war again. Hyujin Shin said that he knows exactly what those old men are thinking and now is not the best time. He said that the maximum level in Heavenland not only shows the difference in levels, but there is also a title for the maximum level. Hyujin Shin said with a gloomy face that besides all this, their opponent is Ling Si. He asked how he managed to reach the maximum level in such a short time. He said it looked like he had surpassed the rules of the game. Stillwaters said the dungeon was too weird and he felt like the setting shouldn't have been in the game. Lingxi said that he felt the same. He said that these NPCs seemed to have their own consciousness. Stillwaters said that, fortunately, in this incident he was able to reach the maximum level like a miracle. He asked if he remembered what he told him when they first met. Lingxi asked what he said. Stillwaters said he said his goal was the top of Heavenland. Lingxi turned around and said that he had now reached the maximum level. Lingxi asked, was it? He said that after this strange dungeon, he felt as if he began to understand himself better, and maybe the pinnacle was not just a game level. The main character said that he needed to clearly investigate what this strange dungeon was, and what the actions of these NPCs meant. He said since Thousand Autumns is no longer causing problems for them, he wants to leave the guild's affairs to him. Stillwaters said, it looks like Lingxi wants to go missing again. Lingxi asked to be released because he is not well versed in guild affairs. A voice from outside asked if it was an intruder. The main character looked out the window, and someone shouted that it looked like he was being chased. The guy flew into the guild territory backwards. The guy said that they underestimated this thief and he fled into Penumbra territory. Another asked if they should break in there too. The hooded guy ordered a retreat because they couldn't be revealed. The other complied. Someone asked what was going on. He asked if one can be hunted in the game. The girl with pink hair suggested just quickly notifying Stillwaters about this. The guy, with difficulty getting to his feet, asked for help. He said he needed to find their guildmaster. Jae-run raised his head and called Lingxi his name. Lingxi stood in front of him, looking at him. Recognizing him, he opened his eyes in surprise and asked why he was here. Grabbing his clothes, he pleaded with him. Nervous sweat ran down the protagonist's face. Jae-run asked to save Xiao Lan. Remembering Xiao Lan's face, Lingxi asked what was going on. Jae-run said that they were targeted by people in the real world. He said that anti-mainstream was ambushed and he was seriously injured and hospitalized, and Xiao Lan wants to return to the game and avenge him. Lingxi frowned in horror. Hua Xiaowei looked at the dialogue box in amazement. Squirrel, looking at the dialogue box, also exclaimed in amazement. Fallen Whale frowned nervously. Hyujin Shin angrily asked what he was doing. The dialogue box says, Guild War Second Phase Referendum begins. Penumbra Guild Guildmaster officially initiates a war declaration against advent of a Thousand Autumns Guild. Stillwaters, trying to calm Lingxi, told him not to act impulsively. The main character said that he caused them problems. Memories of Dummy 4 flashed through his mind. Stillwaters shouted that they had just gone through a level loss and declaring war was not a wise decision for Penumbra. Lingxi told him not to worry because this time he alone was enough to destroy the advent of a Thousand Autumns. Xiao Lan, touching the bushes, said to go out because they were most likely not chasing them. Longface said that it was all because Jae-run ran away, luring them with him so they were able to escape pursuit. Xiao Lan said that Jae-run did not respond to her message and she hopes he is okay. Longface said that soon after they entered the game, they were targeted, and this was definitely revenge for helping Lingxi against Thousand Autumns, both in game and IRL. He said that they couldn't openly raise their level, and with their level at the moment, they couldn't even defend themselves. He said that this time they were able to escape thanks to Jae-run's sacrifice, but next time he is not sure that they will be able to escape, let alone avenge the anti-mainstream. Longface said that perhaps they would be hunted until they dropped to the first level, and it was too dangerous. Xiao Lan shouted, enough. Frowning, she asked if they hadn't made a promise when they returned to the game this time. She said that although in the game they are the same as in real life, ordinary, but whether it is real life or the game, they all put in their efforts, starting as newcomers and getting to know them all. She said that the struggles between powers have drawn them in, the little players, and they have no choice. Xiao Lan said that they had already chosen to leave this game to avoid limelight. She asked why they still didn't want to let go, even threatening their personal safety in real life. She shouted that the anti-mainstream was lying in a coma in the hospital, and she refused to accept it. Gritting her teeth, she said that even if they were normal players without talent, wealth, or background, she refused to become their victim. Longface looked at her sadly, and Xiao Lan asked, so what if they get killed back to level 1? She said that they can still start over, but they cannot repeat life. Sitting on the ground, she said that even if she loses her in-game identity this time, she doesn't care. Clenching her fist, shrouded in yellow energy, she said that she would definitely repay this grudge. She remembered Kyujin Shin. The dialogue box says, Penumbra Guildmaster officially initiates a war declaration application against advent of a Thousand Autumns Guild. Longface exclaimed that it was Lingxi. She asked why he declared war again when Thousand Autumns had just rescinded their declaration of war. Xiao Lan said that this is an opportunity because Thousand Autumns will be busy. Removing her hood, she said they should slow down in their pursuit. Xiao Lan said that they need to take advantage of the chaos. Looking at the horizon, she said that she wanted a chance to get closer to the Thousand Autumns Guildmaster. Underground World, Dungeon Passage of the Dead. The main character came out of the blue portal and thought that by declaring war against Thousand Autumns, this should ease the pressure of being hunted on Xiao Lan's side. He thought that all he had to do was wait until the referendum was over, because Heavenland's players wanted to enjoy another good show. The votes were overwhelmingly in favor of supporting the guild war. Ling Si thought that there was still half a day left. Tiana asked if he was really going to fight Thousand Autumns alone. She said they could help him even with low levels. Ruko asked if he really didn't need them anymore. The protagonist said that he had already told them that he had confidence that he could do it alone, and they needed to take advantage of this to quickly raise their levels. Tilly's said that he became quite insane after reaching the maximum level. Dark Feather said, GG saves trouble. Ling Si told Tiana that he would trouble her to have most of their guild forces defend the bases. He said that after all, he is going alone this time, and he is worried that Kyujin Shin will send a portion of his troops to attack the bases. He said that they should defend them well, and Stillwaters and Coco Lee would also go there to command the defense. Tiana asked if he meant to say that he didn't plan to rally at first base first. Ling Si said that she understood his style of doing things better and better. He said she had more important things to do. Remembering Night of the Glorious, he glanced at the resurrection stone in his hand. The main character thought that he first needed to resurrect the Night of the Glorious. Standing in front of the large green flame, Ling Si said that it was time to resurrect it again. He placed the blue stone into the green flame. The main character said with a smile that it was his fault that he made him lose his life twice, and he was very sorry. He opened one eye in amazement. The green flames were shrouded in black energy, and Ling Si wondered what was going on. The dialogue box says, due to the inequality between the levels of the summon and the player unable to complete resurrection. The main character asked if it was possible that this was a bug caused by suddenly reaching the maximum level. Many red warning windows appeared in front of him. The dialogue box says, no valid match found. Unable to resurrect the summon. The summon will disappear soon. The main character shouted how this was possible. Recalling Night of the Glorious, he said that even if it was a bug, it couldn't go away. The title appeared above his head. He said there must be a way to resurrect him. A red holographic circle appeared in front of his eye. Ling Si thought that this was a title attribute. The yellow flame was surrounded by the inscriptions, Physical Shell, Soul Data, Exclusion. The main character thought that the physical shell and these souls repel each other. He understood and his eye glowed with purple energy. A column of violet energy rushed upward above him. Ling Si thought that the reason was this new awakened state of his. He extended his black hand towards the green flame. Ling Si shouted, come back. Purple and black energies swirled around his hand. A yellow flame appeared among the green flames. The flame began to glow brightly. The main character exclaimed, Night of the Glorious. A bright light energy rose into the sky in front of him, intertwining with yellow and purple. Something yellow sparkled in the air, gradually taking shape. A black silhouette appeared in front of him and said that he had returned. The main character looked up. The dialogue box says, successfully resurrected summon mutated immortal lord level. Only belongs to player Ling Si. The yellow outline of a knight's helmet appeared on the black silhouette. The dialogue box says, referendum ends. Advent of 1,000 Autumns versus Penumbra. The second phase of the guild war begins. Kyujin Shin waved his hand and ordered all troops to advance according to his orders. The man in armor led the troops behind him into the blue portal. Coco Lee said that the guild war is starting again. She asked if it was really okay for one person to deal with a whole guild. Tiana looked worriedly into the distance. Two silhouettes stood among the rocks, and one of them said that it seemed that the war had begun. He asked what their next step was. Xiao Lan said, Thousand Autumns base camp. The female reporter said that the troops of Thousand Autumns will soon reach bases in all directions, and portals connecting the battlefield are appearing everywhere. She said with a smile that the war was about to begin. She asked everyone to follow her Guild War channel reports in real time. The crowd, looking at the dialogue box, exclaimed that it was finally starting. They exclaimed that the number 1 guild's position in the game depended on this war. There was a huge explosion among the buildings. The guy in armor asked who it was. Taylor, confused, ordered everyone to hold their positions. In front of him, a knight was floating in the air, covered in yellow patterns similar to those of Ling Si in his awakened form. Taylor wondered if it was the devil. A voice from the dialogue box reported to Kyujin Shin that base F had fallen. Hyujin Shin said that Base F is a forward base, guarded by the reputedly sturdy Taylor, not even 1 hour into the war, and it has already fallen. He asked if these were the large Penumbra troops. The guy in the armor replied that the report was that they had not seen any enemy troops. Hyujin Shin asked about the fact that there were no enemy troops. The guy said that the video showed a shadowy lord-level monster that killed Taylor and destroyed the guild members. Guarded by Base F, he said that the video data was sent to his channel. Hyujin Shin said that he had truly never seen this type of lord-level monster. The system notified that the analysis of information about the target had been received. The dialogue box said that the monster was level 120. Hyujin Shin said in shock about level 120 in the name Immortal Glorious Knight. He thought about this name. The knight told the main character that he had returned. Hyujin Shin wondered if it was Ling Si. The main character turned around and praised him for his excellent work. The knight stood in front of him, down on one knee. Ling Si told him to stand up and said that he didn't expect him to come back even stronger. Smiling, he said that he was very glad to see him again. The knight said that it was a great honor for him to be even more useful to his master. Ling Si called him along to win this battle. The knight obeyed. The battle report came from the dialogue boxes. The voice said that Penumbra's guildmaster destroyed Thousand Autumn's frontline base with just his summon alone. A girl dressed as a magician asked about the power of Penumbra's guildmaster at max level. She exclaimed that her blood is boiling. The guy next to her told her that they didn't have any need to go to the battlefield this time, and they could just sit back and enjoy the show. He said that he didn't want to participate in the guild war again because he lost a lot of levels in the last phase and they would just die if they went there as normal players. Dira asked Jae-run where he was going. She said that Ling Si told her to keep an eye on him. Jae-run said that he is going to the battlefield. He said that he had already recovered and had a very important matter to do. Dira told him to forget about it. She said that even their guild members above level 90 don't want to engage in this fight, and he's just a little level 81 thief, and he'll just become cannon fodder even if he goes. Jae-run frowned and fell silent. He said he didn't care if he became cannon fodder, because they and he already had this kind of awareness long before. He shouted that he had to go because that was their promise. Running away, Jae-run thanked her for her concern. Dira said with a smile that he had better be careful. Xiao Lan said that while they were busy fighting, they would take this opportunity to sneak into the Thousand Autumn's headquarters from behind. Longface said that Jae-run responded to their message. Xiao Lan said, as long as he's fine. Longface said that he was running to meet them, and he also said that Ling Si now knows about their revenge. Xiao Lan asked in amazement that he had contacted Ling Si. Longface said that Penumbra took the initiative to declare war to help them, and now they have Penumbra's support. Xiao Lan asked about Penumbra actually declaring war on Thousand Autumns to help them. Longface said that it is true that they are willing, but there is one thing. Xiao Lan opened her mouth in amazement, and Longface said that only Ling Si was fighting. The guy on the lookout tower asked what happened at Base D. He asked if it was an ambush. The main character, appearing behind him, said yes. The guy turned around and asked who it was. Ling Si's blow smashed the tower in half. Men in armor gathered around the tower. They asked if it was an enemy ambush. Ling Si's silhouette was visible in the cloud of dust. He said yes with a sinister face. The guy in the armor reported that their base's D and E had fallen. Hyujin Shin said in bewilderment that the guerrilla troops didn't find any trace of Penumbra's advance. Turning to Temptress, he asked if the Penumbra base she was monitoring had sent any troops. Temptress, sitting on a rock and looking out of the dialogue box, said no. She said that all this time she was following his orders to keep an eye on the Penumbra base. She said they weren't moving at all, like they weren't at war, and she was bored to death. Hyujin Shin asked if she was sure that she didn't miss anything, because they were quite scheming. The Temptress bird flew over the guild base. She said that this is impossible, because her summon can clearly see everything from the sky. Hyujin Shin asked if it was possible that they weren't attacking them in the form of troops. Someone in the back said that it seemed like Hyujin Shin had encountered a problem. Turning around, Hyujin Shin said that this is the guild master of the Are You OK Guild, Mijun. Mijun said that among the first batch of guildmasters who took refuge in Thousand Autumns, he is the only one who hasn't helped much. He said that now it was his turn to help Hyujin Shin ease his worries. The main character hit the guy in armor with his fist. Having flown to the side, the guy hit a mountain of people in armor. He passed out and was surrounded by blue squares. Ling Si, standing next to the burning base, said with a smile that he had finished with the next base. Looking at the map, he thought that Immortal Glorious Knight should be able to quickly destroy the port base. He thought that now only Thousand Autumn's last two lines of defense, bases A and B, remained. Looking up at the sky, the protagonist thought that he had not seen Xiao Lan and the others on the way here, and it seemed that the path they had chosen was not in this direction. Someone called out to him, and Ling Xi's pupils shrank. Blue energy hit the ground around him and someone asked him if he was alone here. The main character opened his mouth. A huge maw of blue energy opened under his feet. Hyujin Shin asked in shock about being alone. The voice from the dialogue box said that there were indeed no traces of other troops around him. Gritting his teeth, Hyujin Shin said that Ling Xi was too arrogant. The voice told him not to worry because he would defeat him. Hyujin Shin said no because he is not his opponent. He ordered him to try to delay him, and he would send Temptress to help him. Mijun, sitting on a tree, said that it was just one person. He said he was too nervous. Mijun licked his lips, looking into the distance. Looking at the slammed blue energy, he said that he would eat it. He saw a huge skull, shrouded in purple energy, rise above the forest. Ling Xi used Soul Kill and burst out of the blue sphere. He landed on the ground and said that he was almost killed by the surprise attack. Soul Follower marks, 30 out of 60. Straightening up, he wondered where this attack had come from. He thought that if it was nearby, he should be able to find it. The main character turned around. A sphere of water swirled in the air. Surrounded by such spheres, Ling Xi wondered what kind of strange skill this was. The spheres rushed towards him. The main character dodged, and the spheres hit the ground. He pushed off the tree with his feet, holding daggers shrouded in purple energy in his hands. He hit one of the spheres with a dagger. The sphere split into many small spheres, and Ling Xi opened his eyes in amazement. He jumped up, throwing a dagger at one of the spheres. The main character landed and the dagger reappeared in his hand. He thought it was really a baffling skill. Temptress, sitting on her staff, asked Mijun, "That skill nerd?" Hyujin Shin said that he is fighting Ling Xi right now. He told her to rush to his aid. Temptress asked why he decided to actively participate in something like this, being a guy who likes to sit around all day researching weird game data. She said she definitely wanted to take this opportunity to test out her new weird things. Hyujin Shin, standing in front of the carriage, said that no matter what, the main thing is that he wants to detain Ling Xi. He said that they could lose more bases, and he had already gathered the rest of the guerrilla troops. Looking at the dialogue box, he said that now that they know that Ling Xi is alone, things will become much easier, and their troops will concentrate on making their way to the Penumbra base. Hyujin Shin said that they will see if he can destroy Thousand Autumns faster by himself, or if he can backdoor faster. The impacts raised clouds of dust above the forest. Mijun, laughing, said that they will see how long he can dodge. He said it was his newly researched skill. My family's invulnerable split-homing monster energy tracker. Mijun said that no matter how it is attacked, the monster tracker can split into balls of energy of various shapes to continue attacking the opponent. And although its destructive power is small, opponents who take damage will be entangled by Monster Tracker's energy, greatly reducing the game character's mobility. He said that when the enemy was completely immobilized, he would get closer and shoot a couple of cold arrows to end this battle. Laughing, he said that if he couldn't find his real body, he wouldn't be able to break out of its control, so this newly researched skill is unbeatable. Mijun said, added with the fact that the one defeated this time is the renowned Penumbra Guildmaster Ling Xi. This can prove that his monster tracker is perfect. He said that he controls the monster tracker from a kilometer away using a special medium, and it is impossible for Ling Xi to detect his position. He said that the medium he uses to control monster tracker is impossible to find by ordinary people. Swinging his dagger, the main character cut another sphere of energy. He said these weird things are really hard to deal with. He thought, even though attacking non-stop can reduce its volume, they keep spreading around him after becoming smaller, and it's also easier for them to attach to his body. Ling Xi thought that this was slowing him down and he couldn't understand the mechanics of this skill. He remembered what he saw during the resurrection of the night. Raising his head up, he wondered what would happen if he used the title skill. The main character opened his eyes wide. On the energy sphere it was written, Data Virus. He thought, not only are these strange things made of viruses, but this entire area is covered in virus particles invisible to the naked eye. He thought that it seemed that this area had been tampered with long ago. Turning to the side, he thought, the most widely spread direction is there. A stream of wind rushed towards Mijun. Mijun asked that he could not find it at such a great distance. Temptress thought that this guy again hid well to control his skill, and he really stays true to his nerd character. She looked up, noticing something. Something was running quickly through the forest, raising clouds of dust. Temptress asked what it was. She realized that it was Ling Xi. The main character pushed off from the ground, leaving cracks on it. He jumped forward at great speed towards Mijun. Mijun asked how he found it. Temptress shouted at him to dodge faster. With his eyes wide open, Mijun said that this was impossible. Ling Si appeared in front of him, swinging his leg. Mijun thought why his monster tracker couldn't immobilize him. Xiao Lan said, in order to avoid Thousand Autumn's detection range, they had to go around a big circle and finally reached here with great difficulty. She said they'll be at the back of Thousand Autumn's headquarters after they climb over this mountain. Longface said that he didn't know that she had such good physical strength. Xiao Lan shouted at him not to say anything stupid because she was also very tired. Grabbing the top of the cliff, he asked what Penumbra were thinking about, and why only Ling Si was fighting. Because if the entire Penumbra Guild were fighting against Thousand Autumns, then it could be said that they have a backer, but now they can only rely on myself. Longface, pointing his finger up, said that something was flying there. Something hit the rock with force. Longface asked what it was and if it was alien again. Xiao Lan opened her eyes in amazement. Mijun lay unconscious, slammed into the rock. Xiao Lan exclaimed that this was a member of the Thousand Autumns Guild. Mijun wondered why his research skill was not effective against him. He thought there were no problems with data analysis. He thought that for a recluse like him, his life was originally unremarkable, and networking technology has always been the skill he took pride in. It's also the only thing he was proud of, but it still can't compare with those players chosen by heaven. Mijun, who feels so out of place in the crowd, thought that even his self-perceived talent is useless in the game. He wondered what else is there for the real-life him to be thankful for. He felt someone touch his hand. Blushing slightly, Mijun opened his eyes. He thought he was very warm. Xiao Lan took off her hood and cast a healing spell on him. Mijun wondered who she was. He opened his eyes in amazement. He stood up on the ground, but there was no one around. Mijun, looking at his hand, thought that someone had saved him. Blushing slightly, he looked down. Looking through the dialogue box, he asked who she was. He thought that he wanted to find her. Longface asked why she saved him, since he is a member of the Thousand Autumns Guild. Xiao Lan said that she is just doing her best as a priest. Longface said that this is not like her style, and since she saved him, he might become their enemy later. Xiao Lan smiled and asked if he had forgotten about the trump card she had in her hand for this revenge. Longface asked if she used it on him. Xiao Lan said that they would never miss this opportunity that fell from the sky. Longface said that she couldn't misuse it, because if it was discovered, she would be in trouble. Xiao Lan said she knows, and she also wanted to test its effectiveness, and a test subject happened to be in front of her. Longface said that he was worried about her. Standing on the edge of the cliff, Xiao Lan said, I can see it. In front of them was a huge fortress, and she said that this was Thousand Autumn's base camp. Temptress landed on the ground. Opening her eyes intensely, she thought that he was too fast and she couldn't do anything to him because he was a thief. Using Succubus State, she activated Charm Alert. Temptress thought that she had just arrived, and that Mijun got sent flying. She thought that she now had to fight Ling Si alone. She thought that in his new state he was completely immune to her charm. Ling Si struck with his dagger, and Temptress barely managed to dodge his attack. Gritting her teeth, she thought that he had become too strong. The main character stood in a dissipating cloud of dust. He said that he hadn't settled the score with her for the Mad King's sneak attack last time. A dagger appeared in Ling Si's hand and said that it will settle it this time. Temptress said that Ling Si, who she likes, shouldn't be so vindictive. She fired a stream of pink energy using churning and chanting Si. Ling Si smiled slightly as he moved from his seat. He jumped up, dodging the stream of pink energy. Dark purple energy enveloped him. Temptress said he was too fast and she couldn't see his actions clearly. Appearing behind her, Ling Si said that he was here. Temptress turned around and swore. A sword shrouded in red energy appeared nearby. The sword stabbed into the ground, raising a cloud of dust. The main character, looking to the side, asked who it was. The fragment of the sword twisted several times in the air. The sword stabbed into the ground, and someone said that it was really incredible, and his weapon was broken instantly. Taking the sword in his hand, Taba Zengo said that it seemed like he had become much stronger again during this period of time. He stood in front of him with a slight smile on his face. Temptress exclaimed that he had come just in time and he had finally returned. She said that while he was training, dealing with the guild's affairs had been very exhausting, and she missed him to death. Taba Zengo told the main character that he still feels pain from the hard punch he gave him last time. Ling Si looked at him with a calm expression. The girl reporter said that Thousand Autumn's guerrilla troops are all gathering towards Penumbra's base, and it looks like they want to concentrate their forces and turn defense into offense. Someone behind her said that following her was the fastest way to get first-hand information. The reporter asked who he was. Wasabi said with a smile that he should notify them as soon as possible. Tiana said that Wasabi sent them information and Thousand Autumns are indeed gathering their forces and heading towards their base. Stillwaters said that just as Ling Si had predicted, once they realized that he was the only attacker, they would immediately go on the offensive and attack their base. He asked Tiana if she was ready. Tiana raised her finger with a smile and told him not to worry, because she completed setting up the base defenses a long time ago. Someone among the fire said that although this is quite troublesome, that's enough for him. He said that if they let him continue, their B-base would be destroyed. Inbito folded his arms across his chest and smiled broadly. Temptress told the main character not to blame them for bullying him 2-on-1. Ling Si, taking the daggers in his hands, said that these were just 2 people and his target was the entire guild.